This is the Peace and Healing Pavilion. Used to be a tent, but now it's graduated to a pavilion. And welcome to Comfest, and welcome to our presentation of Courage in Cannabis. What do you think? What is Courage in Cannabis? Courage in Cannabis is a wildly popular, and I'm saying this truthfully, book series. There's actually 3 volumes now. Volume 1 was released, I think, about 2021. I'm in volume 1. Actually, I'm in volume 1 and volume 2. These are stories that people tell about their experiences with cannabis, and either how it worked for them, or the experiences in their life that led to their use of the cannabis, led to the use of the plant. And so that's kind of the gist of it. Now that was book 1. Book 2 was published, I think, in 2023, in July. I'll never forget July 23rd, 2023. We launched it, book 2. And it was very successful. Again, these are books that have achieved Amazon, the bestseller list. You can find them in Walmart. You can find them in Amazon, on Amazon.com. You can find them in the bookstores. They're getting fairly widespread, and we're really proud of that. What we have here today, who we have here today, I say who we have here today, are 6 of the authors from the book. And I'm wanting to ask them about mostly about what they were writing about, or what led them to cannabis, what led them to be here today. Let's see, a little bit of other things about Courage in Cannabis I'd like to talk about real quickly. We have 4, for example, in book 2 we have 40 different authors. Like, we're starting to get some pretty popular here. For example, Mike Tyson, Ed Rosenthal, Marilyn Mather. Maybe you don't know her, but she was with a group called Patients Out of Time. And we have the most recent one is an audiobook, but it was published in time for Mother's Day, and it's called Courage in Cannabis, The Green Goddesses. Now this is a compilation of some of the women who were in book 1 and book 2, plus another couple. We're talking about cannabis and how its impact on mothers and children and caregivers. I think many of us are mothers, and that is certainly something that we've encountered when we're raising our children. And let's not forget, I don't want to forget this one. This is a Courage in Comedy. This is a thing that we've been doing for the last, I'd say, 3 months or so. On every actually it's Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on StreamYard. They say laughter is your best medicine. I'll tell you what, you tune into these shows and you're going to feel a whole lot better. So you just, for example, we're going to have, actually, I think it's Jason Gams on. We had him already, and then we're going to have TV shows, and then we have Stoner Rob was going to be on July 11th. So this again is 8:30 on StreamYard. I think you'll be getting the information out from YouTube. Dr. Bridget will be getting the information out so everyone can participate, can watch. A little bit more about Courage in Cannabis. It's a project of the GHH Community Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit. And this is the brainchild of Dr. Bridget Williams, who we'll hear from in a minute. She's an established board-certified family physician with 20 years of experience practicing at the Cleveland Clinic. And she is certified to recommend in Ohio, and she operates medical clinics around the country. And I tell you what, I don't see how anybody can keep with her, including Dr. Bridget, because she's speaking at so many medical conferences. And she really brings the message. This is what we need. This is what we need as a movement, to bring to have a doctor go to medical conferences and talk about cannabis, talk about Courage in Cannabis. So, we're delighted to be part of her project. We really are. And I can't go further than this. I have to mention our sponsors. All right. There's Reverb Wellness, Spender, Suburbs, Daga Digital Marketing, Columbus Botanic Depot, here today with us, and Hemp Box, Compass Natural, and Cannabis BPO. Their sponsors are very helpful in getting our books off the ground and funding what we're doing. And I think they should be very proud of us, and we're proud of them as well. So let's get rolling here real quick. We're going to try to give all of the authors approximately 5 to 10 minutes on their stories. And then after that, there will be a Q&A, and you can ask us questions, about either their stories, about the book, or what have you. Okay? Ready to roll? Ready to roll? Let's roll. All right, I'm going to start with, I have to start with Dr. Bridget. Dr. Bridget is our leader, the brainchild of this whole series. She's really the great part of why we're here today, because of her efforts and her courage in cannabis. So, Dr. Bridget, I would like to know, who are your role models, and who or what inspired you to join the cannabis community?
Gosh, when I spent most of my career at the Cleveland Clinic, I was frustrated way too early on in my career. I felt like for all my education, I had a factory job. And so seeing patients every 7 to 15 minutes, and for every diagnosis there was a pill, I got frustrated. And so I started helping patients get off of medications. And one of those patients was a breast cancer survivor and a diabetic, and she asked me about cannabis. I thought she was crazy, but I looked it up and then realized that there was real medicinal possibilities that I'd been socialized to believe didn't exist or had no credibility. And so when I moved to Columbus and the program was really starting to open up as far as medical cannabis, I knew I wanted to be a part of it, but I also knew that I wanted to practice medicine the way I couldn't do in the past. So that's the reason. Originally I was just going to join an office and do cards, but that's the reason why we opened first Green Harvest Health and then Dr. Bridget MD, to be able to create the medical model that wasn't really available. You know, that where the patients could share what was going on with them. They had more time to talk, and that we could actually utilize this medicine in a way that was new for a lot of people. So that's kind of how it got started. The reason why I don't sit on my, gilded throne away from all the patients is because I felt like I understood the cannabis patient. I understood the struggle of stigma, and I was really compelled by the fact that so many of my patients were struggling with shame and guilt for using it for so many years in the closet. And I was at a point in my career, I was so frustrated with medicine, I had nothing to lose. I was willing to go out and talk and share. And if it meant my license, I've been under investigation for being out and talking about cannabis. And I was ready to kind of take that on at that point in my career. And so I related to the cannabis patient. My role models, I hate to kind of say it out loud, but I grew up in Michigan. Dr. Kevorkian was a badass, you know. You can't say that everywhere, right? But I was really, but I was from Michigan. So, you know,
In case I don't know who Dr. Kevorkian is, could you elaborate?
Okay. Dr. Kevorkian was the doctor, was that the 80s or 80s, I think, that was under investigation for helping with youth in Asia. And, you know, if you lived anywhere, you saw this, but definitely in Michigan, it was constantly on the news. And so I grew up thinking, this guy was willing to take a hit for everybody. And definitely one of my role models getting in, you know, becoming a doctor in the future. So,
well, let's keep it on the positive side of Dr. Kevorkian, you know.
Yeah, but he was an advocate for patients.
Yes, no, he was.
And so he was willing to do anything for those people, and that really motivated me.
And he saw, I think, what patients were going through, and he had empathy for that.
Absolutely. So.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. Let's see here. I'm going to skip myself for a minute. I'll come back to me. Andrea. You write your story about PTSD. I think you're an advocate. I see you nowadays, because you've been open about it. I see you as an advocate. I see you as a voice for PTSD patients and all that they have overcome to get where they are and to get where you are. So, according to your story, it's been quite a few years now. And I think what's interesting to me is you were talking about the HIA program. And I think when you started out on this, probably the PTSD diagnosis, there was no such thing. But now there is. So, what do you think of the HAB program, and is it working for you? Now, I said to the audience, I mean the Ohio Medical Marijuana Program. That's what I'm talking about, okay? So, what do you think?
I was diagnosed with PTSD at the age of 19, and I did not want to take pharmaceuticals to treat my symptoms. So my therapist suggested that I try medical marijuana, and I've been a patient in Ohio since 2019. I first started out with vapes and edibles. It was really difficult for me to find what worked best for me because it felt like there weren't a lot of resources for patients at the time. But I feel like the availability of such resources has gotten much broader over the past few years, and I feel like a lot of the industry workers are more educated and helpful about it now. You'll still get some bud tenders who don't have it in their heart to help a patient with medical problems. They just see him as a number or a consumer, but it takes a while to find a dispensary that works best for you and is actually willing to work with you to figure out how to treat your symptoms. I haven't been going to dispensaries as often as I used to, and that's because I have worked in the hemp and CBD side of the industry for the past 2 years, and I've seen that you can also get hemp-derived THC products and even CBD products to help treat my symptoms, especially the insomnia and the anxiety. So those symptoms have decreased over time. But another thing that really helped me was I tried multiple mental health therapists and different types of therapy. So my journey has not just been about medical marijuana. I highly recommend using it in conjunction with traditional therapy because it has helped me learn the coping skills. Unfortunately, there are still states that have no legalization, and if I travel there, I don't want to risk taking marijuana on a plane or in a car. So I have had to learn how to cope with those symptoms without the use of marijuana.
Let me ask you this. You mentioned Delta 9. Is it Delta 9 or Delta 8 that you were trying?
Hemp-derived Delta 9.
Delta 9. Do you notice any difference between that hemp-derived Delta 9 and the THC that you were consuming from other products in the dispensary, the dispensary products?
I will say the effects are pretty similar. However, with the hemp-derived Delta 9, it has to come in a form that is less than 0.3% THC by weight. So that really limits you to edibles and gummies and some vapes. So if you really like flower, that's not going to be a readily available option for you. And if you like consuming flower, I recommend going to a dispensary. But I've learned from working in the hemp side of the industry that it's a more accessible way for people to get relief. But if you're looking for higher THC content, obviously go to a dispensary.
Good. Thank you. I've been wondering about that. Thanks. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on here. I'm just going to go to my left. And it's Broderick Randall. Good afternoon, Broderick. Okay, from your stories, really, both you and your sister, it's pretty clear, have a sickle cell anemia. That must be a very difficult path for you to walk. I know you've been in the hospital quite a number of times, and that's certainly, I can't even fathom that. I mean, I really can't. I can't. I mean, I honor you for your tenacity and being able to put up with life. All right, so over the past several years, we through you're actually with sickle cell, so she's PTSD, you're sickle cell. Do you purchase cannabis from the program?
Yes, I do, and I mean, before the program existed, I discovered that cannabis was a safer, better option for me than using opioids.
I don't think it's us.
Oh, all right. I was like, whoa.
No, maybe it's me. All right.
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I discovered that, after being hospitalized a lot and going to just doctor visits, the only main treatment for a while, I mean, they are getting newer treatments now, but for a while it was just pain meds, high dose pain meds. So, the side effects are, slowly destroying your organs and just, other terrible side effects. And it was just an awful quality of life. So then, I discovered cannabis and just continued to discover more about it. When most people hear it, they think of smoking, but there's so many forms of the plant that you can use that it's made me continue to be curious about it and just engaging to learn more, figuring out what works and what doesn't. Even as she says, you gotta use it in moderation, but you do have to we all have an endocannabinoid system, so it's cool to figure out what I need this much gummies, or I may need this much topical, whatever. With sickle cell, it's a very complicated chronic disease, but so is the cannabis plant, and I've been learning that too. So it's kind of in a lot of ways they've been going hand in hand. The plant gets mistreated. Sometimes when I go in the hospital, you can get mistreated. Unfortunately, there's been mistreatment from even the color of my skin, and I just learned that you got to do your best to continue to be an informed consumer, and it's a good comparison I always try to say is directly in the medicine field, flower and vape carts are very instant relief, and then if you use compare that to in the medical field, there's the IV meds, they're quick to give you morphine or Dilaudid, and that's kind of what they give you for severe pain relief. But if I didn't want to use that, I can use some higher powered cannabis and actually get a better relief effect, or some topical lotion or something, and actually treat it that way. But it's all about being informed and being able to have access to it as well. Affordability is another big thing continuing to run into with cannabis. It's not cheap, but it does grow out with or without us. But we're still working on getting that properly regulated. And I personally believe all use is medical use. We just continue to figure out with more research how. But it's definitely provided a way better quality of life using this plant rather than just relying on the pharmaceuticals that are, I mean, they help, don't get me wrong, but some people can get addicted, and we have a really big opioid addiction problem that is taking over in a lot of areas in the nation.
Have you found any? Okay, you have the sickle cell. Do you use cannabis multifacetedly? In other words, you use all different kinds of forms, or have you found one form that works best for you?
I don't discriminate. I use all forms, but I different forms are better for different situations.
Okay.
So it all depends on that too. They have capsules, they got topicals, and there's different opportunities out there that you can try to adapt to the situation.
Good. Okay, I'm going to go to my right now. So that happens to be Dorothy.
Hi.
Hello, Dorothy. Let's see.
Steadier.
We were talking about this yesterday. That term caregiver, and it's. I can't talk about multifaceted. It's kind of like a multifaceted term. So caregivers and there are caregivers. Now there's the caregivers that take care of the elderly and take care of your parents, your elderly parents, and things like that. And of course, the term caregiver has also been used to denote somebody who has purchases cannabis for either an indigent person or a person who's really sick. Now, I was a caregiver under the latter for about a year, and unfortunately, last year my patient died. So, and I think I like to think that in a way, when I was serving her, I was caring for her. I cared very deeply about whether she got her cannabis, and I think that when she didn't get her cannabis, that's when things went haywire. Right? So that's my story. Anyway, I want to talk about caregivers. You said that you did caregiving for both your father and your mother.
Right, and usually it's a lot of people prefer to be called caretakers because there's the big difference between the system now saying you can be a caregiver for someone.
Exactly, yeah.
And then the caretakers is more of a more comprehensive, intensive thing kind of endeavor. But I don't know what the question was.
Well, it's say the care. You always want to say, let's talk about you were a caregiver for both
for
your
my
parents.
yes.
Right, and so I think you wrote about it in your book that you cared for your mom. I'm not sure about your dad because your dad was a little bit older, but and I think you came from a family where cannabis use was more acceptable as opposed to my family where it was totally verboten. You know, so that's the kind of difference I wanted to stand because here, like I said, I have a family where my father would be very unhappy to see me doing this right now. I think he's proud of me now. But but in terms of what your family was
my
different.
family, no, that's not exact. I must have misrepresented because before my mother was diagnosed with cancer, cannabis was not a free-flowing type of thing in our household. But at that time, my brother and I, we were definitely using. We were teenagers. But and my dad was a pharmacist, so we weren't encouraged to use cannabis until my mother's doctor recommended the use of cannabis for, she had lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the thing is, that was in 2013, 2014. I came home and my mother was being given 9, no exaggeration, 9 pills, prescription pills for everything.
Right.
And I just to put it in a nutshell, cannabis helped tremendously reduce that number. When someone who cared really, I moved back home, and before that, there was no one looking things up and caring. And so, hello. So that's the difference in what they were prescribing back in just 2013. How things have changed because back then medical wasn't even legal.
Right.
So I was coming back and forth from Brooklyn, New York, and fortunately our community provider of the yard lived in my building.
Okay.
And he was very knowledgeable before I even knew what he was talking about, the terpenes, the nutrition, and all this kind of stuff, and how it interweaved with the cannabis he was selling. And he asked the people, what do you want some cannabis for? And he would suggest, let me give you some of this, that. Basically, it was, you didn't have a big choice, indica or sativa.
I'm surprised you had that much of a choice back then.
I know, it was, but anyway, I would bring some back when I drove from Brooklyn to Columbus to take care of my mom.
So it's like he was kind of set up, because marijuana wasn't legal in New York
Not at
until
all.
pretty recently.
Yeah.
The late was 1819, something like that.
Yes.
At least medical, and I think they got adult use shortly thereafter. So he was setting up in Brooklyn was it?
Mm-hmm.
That he like his own kind of dispensary.
Absolutely. His father was a psychiatrist, And later I found out he recommended it.
Sure. So I told you purchased from the dispensary early on.
Well, all I know
As a
is
caregiver, see?
when I came here in 2013, I was asking around, and the only thing people would tell me is it's loud.
Loud.
It's loud when I say what kind
loud.
is what strain or whatever, and they would look at me and say it's loud.
I'm not sure. I don't understand.
It's so it meant it was strong. You could
Obviously, I've been
smell
running
it,
that crowd.
which I didn't know what they were talking about. I the same way you're looking. I was like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Okay.
So that's a little humor.
I learned something today.
I didn't even know. All they would say is, and this is 2013, so 2016 medical.
Yes,
Okay.
of course.
I would have loved to have had the knowledge that I have now and the accessibility.
We needed you back then. We really needed you. I wish you would have joined us back then because we really needed a lot of advocates, and you would be a very articulate and really a beautiful person to do that. So
Thank you. I just I'm just really happy to be in this group on this book. Thank you, Dr. Bridget. Whatever.
all right. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You taught me something. You guys taught me something. Thank you. I don't know everything. Now going to JJ, and then I'll go to the Joe will finish. AJ. This is AJ Warren.
Good
from
afternoon.
Yellow Springs.
Hello.
Beautiful Yellow Springs. And I know that AJ, I know we've even talked about this, about the war on drugs. And both of us, I think, have like minds of it. I think it's like the worst invention of ever. And I think that's part of what you wrote about in your story in the book. Of course, you came from a very liberal family, I think, a little bit more liberal than Dorothy's and mine anyway. So, now, like I see, recently in terms of ending prohibition, okay, that's been a goal of mine from when I started out. This is to fight the war on drugs and the war on drugs, and it doesn't just include cannabis. I settled on cannabis because I kind of have a close tie to it, as we well know. But it's across the board because I think putting people in cages for their behaviors with substances is just such a immoral policy. So AJ, I think you agree with me, right?
Yeah, it ends to fatherless homes, impoverished communities, less opportunities within your community, and you're guaranteed more eulogies. Plain as day, that's all prohibition will do.
Well, like I say, we've seen President Biden offering pardons and rescheduling. We talked a lot about descheduling. It's rescheduling this before the DEA right now. Okay. What other steps, those are steps, let's be honest, those are steps. What other steps do you think need to be taken to achieve the vision of the end of the war on drugs?
I think we need to audit the collective organizations who continue to prohibit cannabis, such as those who classify it as a Schedule I narcotic. Considering the Schedule I narcotic classification that exists, they really do need to audit that agency to try to see why it hasn't been more thoroughly looked at. Because in the field of research and development where I'm from, in the world of wood, paper, and fiber, cannabis, sativa, and all the above is always looked at often for new materials, whether you're including it in glues or IKEA furniture. So the fact that they say that they can't do more research is null and void because those laboratories exist. They exist here in Ohio and basically every state in the United States. And so the governing board's not taking affirmative action, trying to seek a remedy for the society who keeps asking the question, why is it still prohibited, or why is it still classified as a Schedule 1, they need to be looked at as to why they can't give that answer. And I think Biden giving some offenders removal of their charges, I think it should be across the board repealed, because a lot of people would never have became violent offenders if they hadn't had a minor conviction in cannabis, because maybe they didn't have to go, try to steal food for their family, bystander vigilante stopped them, they hit them, they fell, whatever. It's just, it can all lead to all these crazy scenarios. But trying to pick up where we left off in the past and remembering that this is still all to segregate people, discriminate against those in communities, and to just isolate one another for a plant that just simply grows from a seed is just insane. So I think any charges that exist, federal or state, should be eliminated if it considers anything concerning cannabis.
We know why Richard Nixon, I think was it John Ehrlichman wrote about what Richard Nixon said, why he started the war on drugs. It was basically to disenfranchise both hippies, in other words, liberals, and black people. I mean, there's he said, this is what Ehrlichman said about, what Richard Nixon was about, because he started the war on drugs in 1970 was the Controlled Substances Act, which put cannabis in Schedule 1, the most restricted schedule, and then he followed that up in 1972 and 71 with the war on drugs. He actually declared war on drugs, and this is what we got to do. 50 years later, we're still fighting this. Go ahead, AJ, you have some more to say.
Well, and then even earlier than that, 1934, we had the Hemp Tax Act, where bring your cannabis in and pay or apply for your tax stamp, and that was what it would be. Well, people were actually turning themselves in and becoming criminals under the system we lived, right? While they were trying to comply with what existed. So that catch-22 just entrapped them. And even from that moment forth, there's been generational wealth that has been lost from people who were suppressed then, but going back to the war on drugs, the only thing it is profitable. And mostly for all parties, because a war is usually profitable. Whether you're doing humanitarian work, you're supplying defensive arms or offensive arms. We kind of see it on both sides. People are selling clock switches down the street, and then we also have police who are getting, ex-allocated military gear that never got used because they were crated for 6 years because somebody forgot that cargo container. It's just crazy that the more inclusions you put, whether it's weaponry or financials, when you're including around cannabis, it's always going to have that dark cloud around it. It always will. But there's some deciders who are always going to decide it's best to segment things, because that division will always create that plus or minus, and that plus is for them, not us.
You have a great way of saying it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to our final author. My friend, Joe Brennan.
Hello.
I think we talked about this last year. And you ended up last year's panel. I don't know how many here were last year, anybody here last year. And I think he told the most, I was so impressed with your story, how the endocannabinoid system and how it functions, all those things. And he's a walking encyclopedia of this stuff. Joe, by the way, is the owner of the Columbus Botanical Depot. It's located on North High Street in Columbus, off Pasemont, right? Off Pasemont?
Yeah, Pasemont.
So it just gets a little plug for his business. I think he's got some samples around here somewhere.
I do. I've got gummies right there if anybody wants any.
So, could you please have that same conversation we had last year and impress me again?
Yeah, well, it all started about 11 years ago. In 2013, I lost my dad. He was 61 years old. He had been on pharmaceuticals for 15 years. It shut his liver and kidneys down. And myself and my 13-year-old brother had to pull the plug essentially on our dad in ICU and watch him flatline in front of our eyes. And my 13-year-old brother, you know, I had to be strong for him, all that. Literally 2 months later, his brother, my Uncle Tim, was 52 years old and died of lung cancer from the chemo pills, not the cancer. And the doctor even said this last round of chemo will probably be the one that does him in. Who says that? And it did, because he did. He died that night in the bed. 90 pounds, 80 pounds, didn't even look like him. So I didn't know anything about really cannabis before this. This is back in 2013. And so they died, just vanished off the face of the planet forever in front of my eyes. And my uncle, by the way, was 52. So that's young. And so anyway, right after that, I'm sitting there devastated, flipping through the news, and I saw what looked like a little girl having a seizure and the mom putting something under the tongue. I went back and found it. Turns out it was the CNN Weed One special where Sanjay Gupta said it's CBD from hemp, not THC from marijuana, and it was stopping this little girl's seizure in 10 seconds. As tears rolled down my face for joy of this little girl, I saw the entire vision of cannabis being redeemed as a plant medicine because of CBD. If somebody can't melt their heart by watching a little girl come out of a grand mal seizure who's been at the end of life and has been sent home to die on hospice, and CBD turns out stopped her grand mal seizures, I knew in an instant that CBD was the next passion. Something said you couldn't help your family, but you're going to go help the world right now with this. And so I basically gave up my real estate career and went full bore into educating myself. Turns out we all have an endocannabinoid system. We all have receptors for this stuff. I learned that very quickly. And everything I learned over the next couple years was just fell right in. I took the money my dad left me for dying, and I bought CBD and went and gave it away over 3 years, 2013, 14, and 15 for free to every old man, every old lady I saw walking around in parking lots on walkers. I'd go right up and say, hey, you ever hear of CBD? Of course not. It's 2013, 14, 15. Nobody had. But they let me put oil under their tongue, and within minutes they would say, I think I feel better. Everywhere I went for 3 years. So I started doing Comfest shows all over Ohio promoting hemp as a medicine, and turns out I would just give it all away because my dad said, do something good in life. If you want to go help somebody if you want to do something good in life. So I tried to give everything away, and it all came back, and people started saying this is helping me big time. So I ended up going to school and learning physiology, the endocannabinoid system, because otherwise I was a snake oil salesman, because this stuff can cure everything if you understand how and the whys about how to take it and stuff. So anyway, that led in 2016 to Columbus Botanical Depot, because I was meeting people all over Columbus and Ohio selling them CBD in parking lots of grocery stores. And little old ladies would say, this feels like a drug deal. I wish you had a store. And it did, because I'm selling CBD to these people. And so I just ended up getting a store. Everything was perfect in this mission. I found my life calling, basically, because of losing my 2 family members. And I was able to help others through hemp, basically. But that took an education, and that took a lot of people to come back and give me their anecdotal evidence. And been doing this for 10 years now, and I've seen cannabis, CBD, THC. There's over 200 cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. THC and CBD are the ones people know about. There's hundreds more that people don't know about. This plant is a medicine. Our body, every cell in our body has a cannabinoid receptor on it, if not more, that when cannabinoids float down the bloodstream, they bind to these receptors, activate them. It's like turning the circuit breaker on the cells. The cells can communicate. And that's how it's good for cancer. Cancer is just a clump of cells that hasn't been given the apoptotic signal from the healthy cells around because it hasn't answered the phone. Cannabinoid receptor, the endocannabinoid system is the mycelium of our body. Mycelium is what lives in the ground. It's the network of communication. That's how mushrooms come up. Our endocannabinoid system is very similar to the way the earth works. Communication travels through our endocannabinoid system from head to toe, from conception to death. Every physiological response is regulated by the endocannabinoid system. These are all amazing facts I'm giving you guys. Because as it turns out, our entire body is ran by the endocannabinoid system. Now, endo is short for endogenous, meaning we make these compounds naturally. We make CBD and THC-like compounds when we exercise. That's what runner's high is. It's not endorphins, it's anandamide. When a woman's pregnant, she would fail a drug test because there's so much endogenous cannabis in her system from just being pregnant. She would fail a drug test because it's important to breastfeed the child, so the mother-produced cannabinoids go into the baby and trigger the baby's endocannabinoid system, which then triggers the hunger, munchies, and suckling effect of the baby. It's so interesting. The point is our body is hardwired from head to toe to receive either self-made cannabinoids or endocannabinoids or exogenous from the outside. Plant, cannabis. Cannabis just so happens to produce all the cannabinoids that bind to our cannabinoid receptors. It also has all the terpenes that exist in nature. All essential oils, you burn diffusers, those are essential oils. They're called terpenes or terpenoids. They exist in cannabis too, they're medicine. That's what differentiates indica from sativa. It's the terpene profile. It's nothing else. It's not the THC, the CBD, it's the terpene profile of the cannabis strain you're smoking. That will indicate either, it's all about the terpenes. So cannabis has all of nature's medicine in one plant, as it turns out. And these particular compounds that it has act perfectly with our body because we're hardwired to receive it. So this is why everything's illegal. This is why THC's been shunned since the beginning of time, because they've known that we all, humans and all mammals too, that's why your dog can eat your brownies and get high. All mammals, any species with a central nervous system has an endocannabinoid system, an ECS for short, because it's the controlling system that controls all the other systems. Just like your car has a bunch of systems, a braking system, cooling system. Well, what keeps them all communicating? The brain box of your car. The ECU is the brain box of our body. And if you don't support it, so how do we get endogenous cannabinoids so we don't have to use plant source cannabinoids? We got to exercise, we got to be pregnant, we got to take omega-3 fatty acids, and we got to sing, pray, and meditate. You notice when you get into a meditation, you feel that oneness feeling? That's your body dumping anandamide, which is your body's own THC, into your bloodstream, which will go up and activate the CB1 receptors in your brain, which causes you to feel high or euphoric or whatever the feeling is. Just enough to make you feel that way. When you eat a bunch of salmon and fish oil, take a bunch of omega-3 fatty acids, your body converts that to anandamide, THC, or 2-AG, CBD, which activates your CB2 receptor in your body. So there's a lot to really know about this, and that's what we do at my store. We have an education center, we teach, we bring people in, we help in every way we can, because it's the education that's missing. It's not the cannabis, it's out there. It's the education. What cannabis? There's 7,300 strains. Which one do I need? Are you going to try all 7,300? I couldn't afford that. So we really got to dial in on the science about what's in it and then how it affects our body to treat what diagnosis. And that happens every single day at a hemp store, turns out, in Columbus.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. I'm gonna kind of stop things right here, because you know what I did? I forgot to cover myself.
No.
So I'm gonna leave you guys. We've got about 6 more minutes. I was gonna say this stuff with my story, with my quick story. If you know me, I'm a long-term activist in Ohio for cannabis. I've worked with the Free Press, Columbus Free Press, for more than 20 years. I've written, I think, 112 articles for them on cannabis-related topics. If I said I could just be talking on and on. You don't want to hear that. But you do want to hear, might want to hear this. I had breast cancer in 2020. And that was only me could get breast cancer during the pandemic, right? That's an accomplishment right there. So, okay, I go in, and I have to give you a little bit here. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. I need to give you a little bit of background about my background. Back in the, I don't know if anybody here from Dublin, you'll remember Adria Laboratories, which was in old Dublin, and then out on Avery Road. Adria Laboratories was in its time, largest U.S. marketer for cancer and chemotherapy agents. And I was a marketing analyst. So it's my job to study anti-cancer drugs. And Adria, if you've ever heard of doxorubicin, that's also called adriamycin. That was their flagship product. So I got to know all about cancer and cancer chemotherapy. The day I left Adria, the very day I left Adria, I was driving home and I was saying, as God is my witness, I will never, ever, ever take one of those drugs. I know too much. I'm sorry, guys. I know too much. So I had breast cancer. Of course, I have it not only during the pandemic. I had the worst kind of breast cancer you could possibly have. That's called triple negative. because there's some cancer agents that will work on some of these other ones because they can connect to different receptors on those cancer cells and destroy those that way. But apparently triple negative doesn't do that. It's just the cancer growing like that. And so again, I went in. They took me in to the hospital, and they said, okay, here are your options. And I'm sure they thought that I was going to say, yeah, I'll do the cancer chemotherapy. I said, I will not. And I repeat, I will not touch chemotherapy, ever. And they were kind of, okay. Well, so I had surgery to move the tumor. We'll get to that in a second here. So what I did, I knew what I wanted to do. And this is right at the beginning of the program, okay? The Ohio's Medical Marijuana Program, because they were the first dispensaries opened in 2019. So I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to have a conversation with everybody about what I did to take care of the cancer. I didn't want to say, well, I went and bought it, on the back street over here, and, got a farm over here, and we don't even know what's in it. But I wanted to make sure that I was getting what I wanted. And so I contacted a physician. By the physician that I knew best, Dr. Bridget Williams. And she was, I guess I hired, just kind of got a number of different Sherpas was what I called them to help me through cancer, okay? So we found a oil, it's called Rick Simpson oil. Rick Simpson oil, you can look that up, Rick Simpson oil. It's a highly concentrated THC oil, and it's usually extracted via ethanol, not CO2, and there's actually a difference there. And you want it to be really black, almost like tar. If it's anything, if somebody's going to see RSO as anything other than that, it's not RSO, walk away, okay? So I found an RSO in one of the dispensaries, and right about a month before I had the surgery, I started using it. And so then there's actually a Rick Simpson protocol out there. I was using it 3 times a day. So by the time I got to the surgery, they're looking at the results, they go, dang, there's no cancer in there. Because they say something about the margins. A lot of things I didn't know, because my background is not physiology or biology, so a lot of things I don't know about that. They said, there's no cancer in the margins. You're basically saying, okay, I don't have cancer. And I went, so I went and did the radiation, but irregardless of that, I'm 4 years out, and I still feel pretty darn good. And I'll tell you, the last 4 years have been some of the best of my life, because RSO doesn't just cure the cancer. They don't like to say that, I said it. But it also takes care of other things. Like I had the time, I was hardly able to walk. I had dislocated left ankle, dislocated right knee. I could walk any place I want. In fact, I walked over to that darn garage last night to get my car, and I saw that was a 15-minute walk, and it was about 85 degrees out. But I did it. So, and like I say, I was a person with cancer. And I had this, and I still do it, dislocated left ankle, dislocated right knee. I did it. And so the RSO, I think, Joe, I want to go back to you. It's like, what is the cannabis is like induces, for Dr. Bridget too, induces homeostasis, does it not? So that it takes care of a lot of different things.
Yeah, the goal of the endocannabinoid system is to promote balance, which is homeostasis. Mm-hmm. So it's going in and kind of doing things that it needs to do where it needs. It's a very intelligent system, so it knows exactly what needs to happen, and it sends its communication pathways through the cannabinoid receptors. And so that's what it's doing. So if you take the oil under the tongue, it's going to go to the brain, you'll get balance there. If you eat edibles, it goes to the body, you get balance there.
All right, okay, so yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. That's kind of what happened to me. But I want to leave you with my Starling statistic. This is a Starling statistic. I want you to remember this, whenever you hear about it, okay? In 1970, as I said earlier, they passed the Controlled Substances Act, which placed cannabis in Schedule 1. If you know anything about that, Schedule 1 is the most restrictive schedule, and it's just basically putting it in a big iron box and throwing away the key, all right? And at around the same time, around 1974-75, researchers found that THC induces apoptosis. Now that means basically THC causes cancer. Well, what Joe said, causes cancer cells to do cancer death. They just die. All right. So THC kills cancer cells. Got that? Now, since 1970, with passage of Controlled Substances Act, we put cannabis all the way. You can't research, you can't touch it, do anything with it at all. From then until now, 27 million people have died of cancer. Let me repeat that. 27 million people have died from cancer since 1970. In 2024, almost 700,000 people, some Americans, will die of cancer. Now you're going to tell me that there's success in treating cancer? I know what I'm talking about. There is not. We need to start research today and find out, because they always say, well, we're searching for the cure for cancer. It's right here. It's right under your nose. Right there. So get out there. Get that research done. Advocate. If you're not a scientist to do that yourself, advocate for it. We need to make sure that cancer, doesn't exist anymore, and that's by legalizing cannabis.
So what we could do is take this conversation back. Our tent is, we have a booth literally just across here, and at that tent we have books for sale.
Yes.
Joe has his shop, his mini shop, set up for the Columbus Botanical Depot, and also an opportunity to have conversations with all of the authors. So, Mary Jane, we want to thank you for pulling this together today, and we want to thank all of you for listening to our Courage in Cannabis stories, and come on down and we can continue the conversation.